we'll start with Legislative District 21, incumbent Marco Elias and challenger Mario Lotmore. Candidates will each have 2 minutes for their opening statements. Mr. Lotmore, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you. Good evening, I'm Mario Lotmore. Originally from the Bahamas and having lived in every region of the United States, has exposed me to various cultures, peoples, and approaches to life. I have called Mukilteo home for over 6 years. I'm an engineer by trade and have proven success implementing and managing lean, accountable processes and policies within my 18 years of operations excellence, strategic development, and project management in both aerospace and manufacturing industries. My mom, a special education educator, instilled in me the foundation of service for others, which now includes the president of a $1.8 million HOA, an active STEM volunteer, and former Boeing 747 Diversity Council leader. My dad, a local Bahamian entertainer, relied heavily on his vocational training to support our family in the Bahamas. Our district is facing an opioid epidemic, an accountability issue, and we must promote and protect vocational opportunities to remain competitive in the global economy. You deserve a leader with vision who will no longer continue the tax and spend policies of throwing money at the symptoms, but will work with other leaders in our community, both in the public and private sectors, to pass policies getting our district back on track for a better future. When elected as your next state senator, I pledge an open-door policy for fair and reasonable decision-making and respect of both individual freedoms and your money. As your next state senator, you will have a voice in Olympia. So let's make history by returning trust back to Olympia, returning trust back to our government, and electing me, Mario Lotmore, as your next state senator.
Thank you. Mr. Elias, you have 2 minutes.
Thanks, Luke. Thanks to the Chamber for organizing this forum. It's always a special treat to have a chance to talk about the important issues facing our communities. My name is Marco Elias, and for the last 4 years, I've served as our senator here from the 21st District. I was born and raised in this district. I grew up in South Everett, Mukilteo, went to Kamiak High School, and thanks to a lot of great teachers and a great education system, was able to go to Georgetown University and get my degree and come home. It actually was the Mukilteo Chamber of Commerce and my involvement there that inspired me to first run for the City Council in Mukilteo and get involved in my community. So it's appropriate that the Edmonds Chamber is hosting us tonight. In my 4 years in the Senate, I focused on a couple of key priorities: fully funding education, and this year the Supreme Court finally ruled that we have met our constitutional obligation to our kids and fully funded our public schools. I've also worked on protecting young people in our community, both from bullying in our schools, from conversion therapy, from other threats that exist in our communities. And today, especially, I'm concerned around the challenges of affordability. How can folks afford to live in the communities that they grew up in? I think about my friends from high school that went away to college and came back and find housing prices out of reach in our region. I think about struggling small business owners trying to afford health care and finding those individual market rates out of reach. I think about young people trying to start a family, and child care is over $1,000 a month on average for families trying to get a start. Young people stuck with student loan debt because of higher education that wasn't affordable. So as we move forward, I think we've got to really focus on the core issues that have made our region so great, but ensuring that everyone can afford to live here, everyone can afford to be a part of our communities, and that's the job of state government, is to bring the public and private sectors together to solve these problems and make sure that our communities are moving forward. I ask for your vote for another 4 years. I look forward to the questions tonight.
For Mr. Elias. A number of states have eliminated the statute of limitations for sex crimes. Do you support similar legislation in Washington state?
I think what's really clear is that we need to extend the statute of limitations, and I think it's worth exploring removing the statute of limitations as well. I think our society is really reckoning with particularly the treatment of vulnerable women, but just sexual assault across the board. And I think we need to spend more time in the legislature really understanding the impacts, talking to law enforcement, our prosecutors, victims advocates. I don't serve on the Law and Justice Committee, and I'm not a lawyer. So the details of why our statute of limitations is what it is today and what would be a more appropriate figure, I'm not an expert on. What I think is really clear is that we have to do everything we can to support victims as they come forward and tell their stories. When there are claims of abuse or assault, they need to be clearly and impartially investigated. And if someone is found to have committed these crimes, they should be held fully accountable. And it doesn't matter whether you're a Supreme Court candidate, whether you're a state senator, or whether you're someone in our communities. I think the law should apply to everyone, and everyone should feel safe in our communities.
Mr. Lotmore, same question.
Thank you. First, I'd like to say I think every voice should be heard. I think every account should be heard, bottom line. I do not believe there should be any statutory limitations when it comes to child predators, or at least when it comes to molestation or abuses against children. I have zero tolerance against that. I know too many people that has happened to, and they've been scarred for the rest of their lives. Also, when it comes to felony rape, no excuses. So I kind of agree with you. We should definitely look at removing the statute of limitations.
The next question is for Mr. Lotmore. Even in my short lifetime, and especially recently, bipartisanship appears to be struggling. Will you please name one proposal from your opponent's party that you would like to see your party work on?
Yes, one thing I like to is when it comes to our growth and economic vision. I know that Maralyn Chase, Senator Chase, whatever there, she is actually promoting a growth economic plan for our state. And I'm actually working with county leaders right now, Sam Naring and Sam Lowe, to develop a technology and manufacturing corridor in our district. So that's actually what I like to do. Actually, I like to really focus and work across the aisle when it comes to our creating a technology corridor that can actually provide new sources of revenue in our state.
Mr. Leas, same question.
That's a great question. We really need more bipartisanship and more cooperation. I was proud this session to serve as the majority floor leader in our state Senate, and in that capacity helped decide and shepherd bills across the Senate floor. I'm proud to report that of the 300 new laws that became part of this legislative session, 98% of them the Senate passed with bipartisan support. When we ended conversion therapy, when we passed the Student Loan Bill of Rights, two of the things I championed, there was strong bipartisan support, and I had both bipartisan co-sponsors. In terms of where I've worked across the aisle, my colleague Curtis King, a Republican from Yakima, proposed a statewide gas tax increase to fund transportation improvements around the state. I was proud to join with him to make sure that we were investing in projects in our community, and I look forward to working with whoever is elected from whatever district on issues like housing affordability, healthcare affordability, to make sure we move our communities forward.
Thank you. The next question is for Mr. Leas. A bill that attempted to exempt legislators from the state's Public Records Act was vetoed by the governor after public outcry. What legislative communications, if any, should be exempt from the Public Records Act?
That's a really great question. You know, I served in local government on the city council, where city councils have to comply with the Public Records Act fully. And then I moved to the legislature, where I've served for the last number of years. And I will tell you that when I was a city council member, the kinds of communications I received from my constituents were really more focused on land use decision, things that were happening in city government. As a state lawmaker, I routinely receive very personal, detailed accounts of criminal conduct, of medical conditions, of things that really I think our constituents don't deserve to have made public for their friends and neighbors to read or peruse. So I do support protecting constituent correspondence, information between constituents. The other thing that is a really valuable part of our process is we have an expert staff in Olympia who are able to give us confidential advice on what are some of the proposals that we're considering and get analysis of them. So I think that there is a place to receive that kind of advice and that kind of guidance and those thoughts in a way that helps you develop your idea before it's ready to be made public. Those would be two of the areas. I do agree, after hearing really loudly from my constituents, that that bill wasn't correct, and I asked the governor to veto it, and I'm glad that we have a chance to start over.
Mr. Lotmore, same question.
Yes, I'd just like to first say in early 2017, my opponent publicly stated that public office officials should have their records be released, should have full transparency. He said in the Seattle Times. But yet, when it came to him and the bill was presented, he voted against it. I think that's a shame. I think they could have simply amended the bill for privacy. I mean, one thing that, so I actually think, great speech you just gave, but personally I think that we should have our records should be transparent, and we could actually introduce amendments in which we can actually protect the privacy, especially those involved in sex crimes or involved with stalking and stuff like that. So,
Thank you. The next question is for Mr. Lotmore. Initiative 1634 would prohibit new or increased local taxes, fees, or assessments on raw or processed foods or beverages, with some exceptions. What is your stance on this initiative?
can you repeat the question?
Initiative 1634 would prohibit new or increased local taxes, fees, or assessments on raw or processed foods or beverages. What is your stance on this initiative?
I support 1634 fully.
Mr. Leas?
I think it forces you to make a tough choice. I really believe in strong local control. I served on a city council in Mukilteo, and I think that local communities generally should be given the full authority to make the right decisions about what are local priorities, and this would preempt our local jurisdictions from implementing regulations that they think are important. I don't support a tax on groceries. Our state tax system is very clear. We don't charge the sales tax on groceries, so I'm kind of stuck between two poles. I don't want a tax on groceries, but I want to make sure that cities and our local communities have the tools they need to make decisions to protect public health. So at this point, I'm going to read the initiative a little more closely to see what specifically is included, and then whatever the voters pass or fail is what I'll work to implement as our senator.
Thank you. The last question is for Mr. Leas. School and other mass shootings have spiked in recent years. What do you propose to help curb these multifaceted tragedies?
Well, I think that there's an initiative that'll be on the ballot this fall to enact a whole host of sensible, common sense gun safety reforms, and I support Initiative 1639. I'm proud to be supported by the Alliance for Gun Responsibility in my campaign for re-election. I think that there are some things we can do to ensure that young people, like the young man who committed a mass killing in Mukilteo, don't have access to their firearms. I worked for the city of Mukilteo at the time, and I'll tell you the stories that came out of that incident. The young man sitting in his car reading the instruction manual to learn how he can go kill these young people that were at this party are just heartbreaking. That shouldn't happen in a civilized society. I think what we can do is ensure that people that have mental health challenges and other problems don't get access to weapons. I think young people shouldn't get access to these weapons really of war. And I think we need to do a better job of knitting together all the background check systems to ensure that law enforcement and our retailers are all on the same page around who should and shouldn't have weapons. Those are a few of the things that I would do.
Thank you. Both of you will now have 1 minute to make a closing
I don't.
statement.
Do I get to?
Oh, sorry.
It's okay. Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, school and other mass shootings have spiked in recent years. What do you propose to help curb these multifaceted tragedies?
Yeah, so this, actually first it's a tragedy overall. I mean, I think it's terrible we see this trend that's going on. But first I'd like to propose that I believe that we should look at minimum sentencing for gun offenses. Florida was very, very successful. In the first 2 years of it being implemented, there was a 26% reduction in gun violence. So 10 years, minimum sentence, use a gun, 10 years. Fire a gun, 20 years. And if you shoot someone or kill someone, minimum life. I think that would be very, very effective. 2, I think we should look at increased penalties for gun-related criminal negligence. This would incentivize responsible gun owners to secure their guns. I also feel that a lot of people want to separate the opioid addiction that we see, the opioid epidemic, from gun violence. It's all stemming from the same thing. We need to foster social interaction in our schools. I am going to challenge my colleagues to go ahead and adopt a school and work directly with student councils and with PDAs to bypass the red tape so we can foster that social interaction.
Thank you. Now you will each have 1 minute for your closing remarks. Mr. Lotmore, you will go first.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to thank the Edmonds Chambers of Commerce and the audience for the opportunity to be heard. As your next senator, I will work across the aisle to reduce accessibility to opioids in our community, promote vocational opportunities, making our youth not only college ready, but also career ready. I will work across the aisle to implement a viable economic growth plan for our state. Diversifying its revenue base is essential for success. My talent is finding that recipe of shared destiny for everyone. So I humbly ask for your vote to get our district and our state back on track for a better future. I am that Republican that you can believe in.
Thank you. Mr. Lias, you have 1 minute.
Thank you very much. Thanks again to Greg and the team at the Chamber for giving us this opportunity to chat with the community. I'm really proud of the work we've done over the last few years to fully fund our public schools, to take on issues like the Student Loan Bill of Rights that I championed, banning conversion therapy to protect our youth, which I worked on for many years. And there's so much work left to do. That's why I'm here running for another 4-year term as your senator. We have to make our communities affordable. We have to make them accessible to all people in all income segments so that no matter what zip code you grow up in, your kids can have a great education and the opportunity to succeed. I'm also proud of the endorsements that I've received in this campaign for re-election. Both of our newspapers here in South County, the Seattle Times and the Everett Herald, interviewed all the candidates running for position of Senate and endorsed me unanimously for that spot. In addition, the Alliance for Gun Responsibility, Governor Inslee, the Sierra Club, a whole host of people in business and labor have supported my campaign. And I think it's a measure of the work I've gotten done, but also the fact that we have some challenges that lie ahead, and I look forward to working with everyone to get them done.